The horizon floated in the silence of space, a gleaming testament to human ambition. Its sleek structure reflected the surrounding starlight, casting beams that stretched like celestial fingers toward the distant, hungry void of the black hole. The crew's mission was to approach the event horizon closer than any spacecraft before them, gathering data that would push the boundaries of human knowledge and, hopefully, return safely. But for Commander Alex Reed, this was more than just a scientific mission. It was a journey that had haunted his dreams for years. Alex sat in the command chair, eyes fixed on the black hole's swirling edge on the screen in front of him. It was mesmerizing, a swirling maw of darkness devouring stars, a silent, endless hunger that demanded reverence. His heart pounded as he listened to the gentle hum of the ship and the quiet chatter of his crew in the background. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. "You okay, Commander?" A voice broke the silence, snapping him from his trance. He glanced to his right, where Lieutenant Marissa Chen, his second in command, was watching him with a mixture of concern and admiration. She'd known Alex long enough to recognize when he was lost in thought. "Yeah, just something about it, you know?" Alex replied, giving her a reassuring smile. "This is what we came here for. It's surreal to be this close." Marissa nodded, her gaze drifting back to the screen. "It's beautiful. In a terrifying kind of way." "Couldn't agree more," Alex muttered, gripping the armrests as the horizon inched closer. He knew they were still safe, well outside the event horizon, but he couldn't shake the feeling of standing on the edge of an abyss. The ship's instruments began to beep, pulling him back into focus. "Keep monitoring the gravitational waves," he ordered, his voice calm but firm. "And make sure our readings are stable." "Yes, Commander," Marissa replied, moving to the console beside him. As the ship drew closer, a sudden tremor coursed through the horizon, sending a jolt through the entire crew. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered. Alex's heart leaped as he tightened his grip on the armrests. "What the hell was that?" he barked, eyes darting across the control panels. "Unstable gravitational field, Commander," one of the technicians called out, panic in his voice. "We're getting hit by a wave from the black hole." "Stabilize the ship," Alex shouted. "And prepare for an emergency response protocol." The ship shuddered again, a violent lurch that threw them off balance. Alex steadied himself, adrenaline spiking as he activated his suit's magnetic stabilizers. The black hole's gravity had reached out like a dark hand, gripping the horizon with unseen fingers. "Commander." Marissa's voice broke through the alarms. "We're going to lose structural integrity if this keeps up." "We're not losing this ship," Alex growled. He glanced at the console, his mind racing as he assessed the situation. There was only one option left. "I'm going out there." "Are you insane?" Marissa's eyes widened. "The gravitational waves, I know," he interrupted, his tone firm. "But we don't have time to argue. If we lose propulsion, we're done for." He pushed himself up from the chair, the weight of his decision pressing down on him. Moving swiftly, he suited up, the ship's gravity stabilizers keeping him grounded as he headed to the airlock. Outside, the black hole pulsed, its energy rippling like a silent heartbeat in the vacuum of space. As he exited the ship, the darkness pressed against him, almost tangible. He maneuvered along the exterior, hands steady despite the rattling force from the gravitational waves. Just as he reached the damaged panel, another wave hit, a surge so intense it knocked him back. He felt the tremor all the way through his bones, and then, a blast of radiation washed over him, a burst from the black hole that seemed to pierce his very being. Pain flared through his body, every nerve on fire. His vision blurred as he tumbled through space, his breath catching in his throat. "Commander, come in." Marissa's voice crackled over his earpiece, but he barely heard her. The darkness swallowed him, and everything went silent. When Alex opened his eyes, he was lying in a sterile hospital bed back on Earth. His mind swirled with fragments of memory, broken images of the black hole's pull and the void stretching endlessly around him. He groaned, the weight of reality settling back onto his shoulders. "Commander, you're awake," a soft voice said, pulling him from his haze. He turned his head, finding Dr. Evelyn Shaw watching him with a curious intensity. Her face was calm, her gaze sharp as she assessed him. "What happened?" he asked, his throat dry. "You were exposed to a gravitational surge unlike anything we've seen," she replied, her voice measured. "The energy readings from the black hole spiked just as you were outside the ship. You're lucky to be alive." Alex took a shaky breath, trying to process her words. But something felt off. The room seemed lighter. He furrowed his brow, noticing a strange sensation in his body, a tingling under his skin. "Doctor, something feels different," he whispered, flexing his fingers as if testing them for the first time. Evelyn watched him closely, a flicker of understanding in her eyes. "That's what we need to talk about," she said, her tone shifting to a mix of intrigue and caution. "Since you've been back, we've observed anomalies in the gravitational field around you." "What do you mean?" he asked, a knot of anxiety forming in his stomach. "Alex," she said, her voice dropping to a near whisper, "you're manipulating gravity." He froze, disbelief washing over him. "That's impossible." But as the words left his mouth, the weightless sensation intensified. He looked down, watching in shock as a small cup on the bedside table lifted, hovering in the air for a brief, surreal moment before dropping back down. His breath hitched. It was true. Somehow, he'd returned from the black hole changed. Days passed, and Alex found himself experimenting with his newfound powers in the secrecy of his apartment. At first, he could barely control it. Objects would levitate without warning, and he struggled to contain the strange force surging through him. It was as if he were a conduit for the black hole's energy, each attempt pulling him deeper into the void. Late one night, as he focused on a pen floating in midair, a sudden wave of pain struck him. He gasped, clutching his head as an image flashed across his mind, a vision of the black hole, swirling and pulsing with a strange intelligence, as if it were alive. He saw shapes shifting in the darkness, figures moving with purpose. When the vision faded, he sat there, shaken. He couldn't deny it any longer. Whatever had happened to him during that mission had left him connected to the black hole in ways he didn't understand. But just as he began to come to terms with his abilities, a knock on his door jolted him from his thoughts. He opened it to find Dr. Shaw standing there, her face grave. "Alex, we need to talk. Now." Seated across from her at his kitchen table, Alex listened in silence as she explained. "There's a group," she said, her voice low and serious. "The Celestial Order. They believe the black hole holds the key to humanity's evolution. They want to expand its reach, pull the entire solar system into it." He felt a chill run down his spine. Why would anyone want that? "They think they can harness its power, but they're playing with forces they don't understand," she replied. "We've been monitoring them for years, but they've gone underground. And now, they're aware of you." He frowned, struggling to process her words. "What do you mean?" "They know about your powers, Alex. They see you as the missing piece of their plan." As he sat there, the weight of his situation pressed down on him like a physical force. The black hole had given him incredible abilities, but now those powers painted a target on his back. Alex sat in stunned silence, his mind racing as Dr. Shaw's words sank in. A rogue organization, the Celestial Order, thought he held the key to controlling one of the most dangerous forces in the universe. The weight of it pressed on him, heavy and unrelenting, like the gravity he now commanded. "Alex," Dr. Shaw's voice was softer now, almost pleading. "If they get to you, if they can manipulate you or control your abilities, there's no telling what they might achieve. They could wipe out humanity without so much as a warning." He swallowed, his throat dry. "Then what do we do?" Dr. Shaw leaned forward, her eyes intense. "We train. We get you to understand your power, to control it. To know its limits and, hopefully, how to push them if necessary. I'll have the resources you need, but you have to commit." The thought of training, of dedicating himself to this hidden, dangerous world, felt surreal. But as he looked at Dr. Shaw, he realized there was no choice. "I'm in." The days that followed were grueling. Dr. Shaw arranged a remote training facility far from prying eyes, a stark concrete bunker that housed every tool and piece of equipment he'd need to explore his abilities. She kept the place well guarded, and even within its walls, they worked under the tightest security protocols. At first, Alex's progress was slow. The powers were erratic, responding more to his emotions than to conscious control. Frustration made objects shake, anger caused them to shatter, and once, in a moment of pure exhaustion, he even found himself levitating a few inches off the ground. But with time and rigorous practice, he learned to focus his mind, to steady his breathing and clear his thoughts before channeling the energy. He discovered he could create pockets of altered gravity, enough to pull or push objects with precision, even redirect them mid-air. He could make the air feel heavier in a room, increasing the pressure until even Dr. Shaw struggled to breathe. One night, during an intense training session, he found himself pushing his powers further than ever before. His hands trembled as he focused, a bead of sweat sliding down his face. He was attempting to alter the gravitational pull on a dense metal sphere, forcing it to stay suspended mid-air. As he increased his focus, the entire bunker seemed to groan, the walls warping slightly. He could feel the black hole's power within him surging to the surface, a dark, limitless energy pressing against his mind, and then, just as he thought he'd lost control, he saw something, another flash of that eerie, pulsing intelligence lurking within the black hole. This time, it wasn't just an image. He felt it probing him, reaching out across the vast distance, as if testing his resolve. He gasped, stumbling back as the sphere clattered to the ground, rolling to a stop. Dr. Shaw rushed over, concern etched across her face. "What happened?" "It's alive," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "The black hole. It's not just some cosmic anomaly, it's conscious, somehow. I could feel it watching me." Her expression shifted from concern to alarm. "That's impossible." "Maybe. But if it's true, then everything we know about black holes is wrong. And if the Order gets what they want, if they activate this thing," he didn't need to finish the thought. The consequences were too catastrophic to imagine. The days stretched into weeks, with each new skill he mastered bringing him closer to understanding the true scope of his powers. But with progress came risk. His abilities drained him, leaving him with splitting headaches, his muscles aching, his vision swimming with strange patterns he couldn't shake. Then, one afternoon, Dr. Shaw approached him with a grim look. "The Order has resurfaced," she said, holding up a grainy satellite image. It showed a remote, heavily fortified compound hidden deep in the mountains. "This is where they're hiding. And we think they're building a device to amplify the gravitational waves from the black hole." Alex clenched his fists, his mind racing. They're going to use the black hole to pull Earth into it, aren't they? Not just Earth, she replied, her tone grim. The entire solar system. The reality of what they were up against felt like a punch to the gut. We can't let that happen. Together, they devised a plan. Dr. Shaw would handle the logistics, organizing a small, elite team to infiltrate the Order's compound. But the final task, the disabling of their device, would fall to Alex. He was the only one with the power to neutralize the gravitational waves without destroying the area. It was a risky plan, but it was the only chance they had. As the team prepared, Alex took one last look around the training facility, his mind replaying the countless hours of practice, the sacrifices, and the pain. He was ready. When they arrived near the Order's compound, the tension was palpable. Under the cover of night, they moved in silence, each step heavy with the weight of what lay ahead. As they neared the perimeter, Alex felt the now familiar tug of gravitational energy. It was faint but unmistakable, a ripple in the fabric of space that only he could feel. The compound was surrounded by thick walls, armed guards patrolling every corner. Alex could sense the gravitational fluctuations radiating from the center, like a heartbeat pulsing through the ground. The Order's machine was active. They slipped through the shadows, avoiding detection as they made their way toward the central building. Dr. Shaw directed them over comms, her voice steady but tense. They were close, so close that Alex could feel the gravitational pull strengthening, resonating with his own powers in a way that made his skin prickle. Inside, the machine was a monstrous contraption, an array of massive metal arms encircling a central core that glowed with an ominous energy. The entire setup hummed with a low, bone-rattling vibration, filling the air with a static charge. As Alex approached, he felt his powers responding instinctively, aligning with the machine's pull. He closed his eyes, focusing on the gravitational field, feeling it bend and twist in ways that defied logic. The black hole's energy surged through him, a dark current that threatened to overwhelm his senses. Suddenly, a voice rang out from across the room, "Commander Reed. We meet at last." Alex's eyes snapped open to find a man standing on a raised platform, his silhouette sharp against the glow of the machine. He was tall, imposing, with a cold, calculating gaze. Alex recognized him from the intel they'd gathered, a former physicist, Dr. Adrian Hall, who had become the Order's leader. "Hall," Alex said, his voice steady despite the anger simmering beneath the surface. "You have no idea what you're dealing with." "Oh, I think I do," Hall replied, his tone dripping with disdain. "The black hole is the ultimate power source, a doorway to forces beyond human comprehension. And you, Commander, are the key." Alex braced himself, feeling the gravitational pull intensify as Hall activated the machine. The air around him seemed to warp, the pressure mounting until he struggled to breathe. Hall's voice echoed, mocking. "Ironic, isn't it? You came here to stop us, but you're exactly what we need to complete the activation. Your connection to the black hole, it's the final piece." Alex's vision blurred as the machine's energy twisted around him, and he could feel himself slipping, his powers draining. But he forced himself to focus, to channel every ounce of his strength into resisting the gravitational waves. "You're wrong," he gritted out, his voice strained. "I control it, not you." With a final surge of effort, he broke free from the machine's pull, the energy snapping back like a rubber band. He could feel his power building, raw and potent, a force ready to be unleashed. The room shook as he unleashed a gravitational shockwave, the force ripping through the compound and sending equipment crashing to the floor. Hall stumbled, his expression twisting into one of pure rage. "You can't stop it," he shouted, scrambling to his feet as the machine began to overload, sparks flying as its systems went haywire, but Alex was beyond words. He reached deep into the well of energy within him, feeling the black hole's presence guiding him, strengthening him. With a fierce, focused determination, he directed the gravitational waves at the machine, destabilizing its core. A deafening roar filled the room as the machine imploded, collapsing under its own weight before vanishing in a blinding flash of light. The gravitational field around them faded, the pressure easing as the room settled into silence. Hall lay motionless on the floor, defeated, his plans shattered. Alex took a shaky breath, the exhaustion hitting him like a wave. He could feel the last remnants of the black hole's energy fading, leaving him hollow but relieved. As he staggered toward the exit, Dr. Shaw appeared, her face a mix of relief and admiration. "You did it," she murmured, her voice barely audible. He managed a weak smile, the weight of everything settling on his shoulders. "It's over." But as they stepped outside, a part of him knew it was only the beginning. The black hole's power was still there, somewhere in the depths of the universe, waiting. And he, for better or worse, was forever bound to it.